All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to probably your last session of the day, I'd imagine. But my name is Vivian Ma. I'm part of the Microsoft Purview team. And I just want to thank all of you for rounding out day 3 of Ignite with us today. I know that we're probably the last thing standing between you and a cold drink or dinner, but we really appreciate that you've made the decision to spend your last 45 minutes of the day with us today. So I'm sure at this point in the conference, you've heard numerous sessions and labs about all of our new capabilities, heard about all of the amazing innovations coming out of the Microsoft Purview team. But that's especially why I'm so excited that we get to spend this next 45 minutes talking amongst our peers, folks just like you who have made bets on Microsoft Purview, and we all get to hear from each other about the best practices and the lessons we've learned along the way as we all embark on these Purview deployment journeys. And the reason why we're dedicating an entire session on a topic that may not necessarily be the most glamorous thing you hear this week is because we also recognize that building a data security program is incredibly challenging, especially in this day and age. You've probably seen this stat multiple times throughout the week, but the data that exists in our world today, 90% of it has been created in the last 2 years alone. And AI has probably played a very large role in generating much of that content. At the same time, teams are trying to secure this entire vastness of data with fragmented point solutions still. So I'm not sure if this sounds familiar to any of you, but perhaps you have a separate solution for labeling that's disparate from the DLP solution that you use for cloud apps versus another solution that sits on the endpoint to secure your data. And lastly, we're also up against the new risks that AI presents as a frontier for potential data loss in your organization. We're already seeing that 1/3 of data security incidents today involve the use of generative AI by employees. And so with all of these challenges in your way, how do you build a confident and comprehensive approach to data security? I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to hear from the incredible speakers that will be joining me in just one second. But before I invite them on stage, I wanted to make sure that all of you have the latest on all of the incredible investments and resources that our Purview team has been creating in order to boost confidence in your Purview adoption journey. Quick show of hands, has anyone heard about the new Purview adoption portal? All right, very exciting. Then I'm excited to be the one to introduce you all here today to the Purview Adoption Portal. This page is your new go-to resource for anything from certification and skilling paths that might be useful for all of our Purview products, in addition to upcoming community events that you may want to join, learn what's new in the product, as well as hear from your peers about any questions that they have that you might be able to learn from. And last but not least, another quick show of hands, has anyone heard about Purview blueprints? All right, just a few. Great. I'm very excited then to introduce you also to the concept of Purview blueprints. Over the last year and a half, our team has developed many new blueprints that are designed to outline our more informed approach to a crawl, walk, run type of approach for how you can start adopting Purview solutions. These blueprints are created using the subject matter expertise of our own internal product experts, as well as our customer experience teams who probably work with all of you on a daily basis, as well as the real-world feedback that we receive from all of you and the learnings that you've had along the way. The idea here is to enable you to learn quickly through things like pilot stages, iterate fast, gradually scale our solutions to your entire organization, and eventually get to a place where you can take a more proactive stance to your program, where you're starting to proactively mitigate, address risks in a more programmatic way, rather than taking a more reactive stance to addressing data risk. In addition, we also support scenario-based blueprints. And with that, I will share 3 deployment blueprints that are available to you today. These range from things like our Secure by Default blueprint, which is designed to help you enable labeling, DLP, IRM at scale across your organization, but are also more scenario-based blueprints like addressing oversharing risks in 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Copilot, or preventing data leaks to shadow AI apps that exist outside of your enterprise managed apps like 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Copilot. So wanted to make sure that we're at least equipping all of you with some resources to help you get started right off the bat. But with that, I want to pass it on to the real stars of the show here. We are bringing on a real Purview customer and one of our trusted partners on stage who have also made their bets on Purview. They'll walk us through their deployment journey from planning, deployment, fine-tuning, and especially for this day and age, preparing for AI adoption. So with that, please help me welcome on stage Aashish and Nick from the Microsoft Purview team, and Antonio from Protiviti, and Scott from Fairfield.
All right. Hello, everybody. Ooh, I heard myself for a second. Thank you all so much for being here, as Vivian said, for helping us to round out this amazing event and talk about the best product platform in the whole world. To me is Microsoft Purview. So with that, I wanted to go ahead and start off with just a deeper intro to our two awesome speakers here. So Scott, if you want to start off with a quick intro.
Yeah, my name is Scott Whittington, and I lead our applications and data strategy at Fairfield, and I'm happy to be here today and share some of our journey. We've had a lot of focus on governance programs that we see as really required for successful solutions, and how we've used Purview to make that happen. So happy to be here.
Antonio?
And I'm Antonio Maio. I'm a managing director with Protiviti. I'm a leader in our global Microsoft practice. I'm also a Microsoft Purview MVP, which means I spend a lot of time at conferences like this, speaking, blogging, podcasting, all these fun things. So ultimately, I'm working on or talking about Purview every day, all day.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for being here. Really appreciate this. So with that, we're going to go ahead and kick things off. And so from a planning perspective, we know that before deployment, there's strategy. And that there's a whole process to going through and the journey of data security. So Scott, when you first started planning your data security program and strategy, what primary problems were you trying to solve for?
Yeah, we weren't actually forming a data security program necessarily. We started with governance, and really several years back, starting with data governance, where we wanted to get value out of data and show that a governance program could help make that happen. And we succeeded with that with really some dashboards that became something that had very wide adoption across the org. So we used that momentum to say, hey, how can we do the same thing with other types of content or documents on the platform, and help build trust around that, and clarity and visibility into what we have on the platform and how to get value out of it. So we formed an information governance committee, and they were set out to do just that effort, and created some information management policy and later AI policy. But that's eventually what led us to Purview, because the objectives that were coming out of that information governance committee were very much aligned with the capabilities of Purview. And so that's when we turned to technology to help the people in our organization accomplish what we were laying out in policy as your responsibility to help with management of information throughout the company.
And would you say AI kind of accelerated that journey as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're very fast paced, because suddenly with AI, data risks are accelerated, and now we have new content types, things like meeting transcripts, which have been around for a long time, but now with Copilot, in particular with meeting transcripts, able to create meeting summaries and go much further. Right now we have to treat it as a new record type and think about the implications of having meeting transcripts created much more extensively throughout the org, right? So Purview is going to help us manage what's happening now with AI at play.
Yeah, absolutely. And Antonio, obviously you work with so many customers. So across your customer base, what are you seeing from the perspective of AI driving or augmenting their data security programs?
Well, I would say having a data security program has always been important, right? What you raised, Scott, about getting value from your information, making sure that you're protecting your information, your most sensitive information. But I feel that this drive to AI, which I have never seen a technology push from the top down to everybody in an organization as fast as I've seen in the last couple of years with AI, right? It's truly coming from the top down. This movement that we all have to leverage AI to do our businesses better has really reignited this discussion around data security, having a data security program, and why it's so important. So I would say the discussions around it have really accelerated the last couple of years because of this drive to AI. It's really, like I said, reignited that need for a data security program.
Awesome. And Scott, looking back as you have gone through this journey and implemented these changes, et cetera, what do you wish you knew when you were starting?
I would say labeling really is where we ultimately started, but I think we could have gotten there a lot faster had we known really the value of doing it, because there was a lot of concern with labels, just another step to accomplish compliance, and are we going to interrupt business workflows? And so we had concerns about when to do it, when was the right time, is it going to add value? Now we realize the value and the foundation that labels set and the importance of doing it, and you can start small. It doesn't have to be something that disrupts workflows. In fact, focusing on how it adds value to business workflows is really what we ultimately did to accelerate our adoption and movement on labels.
Yeah, Scott, I love that. That's such a great, powerful point, is that it's a long-term journey, so it's a marathon, not a race, and so bite-sized kind of deployment methodologies make it easy without interrupting business processes. So thank you for that. So kind of moving from the planning piece here, so we're talking about now deployments, and so I'll pass it over to my co-pilot here, Aashish.
Thank you. I mean, I'm just reflecting on everything that you said, and all of this ties to the sessions that we have been doing. Like, you need labels because, well, Copilot's going to honor it, and if you're on that AI journey, makes it so much more relevant to accelerate your labeling journey there. So talking about the labels bit, now that you have deployed labels, what's that experience for the user been like? How have you overcome the user resistance that comes with labeling, and what is their experience today now?
Yeah, well, I'll use one example. We introduced a label that had encryption and the ability to set permissions when the label is used, and we saw some immediate value from that, especially once we had people getting in there and starting to use it, because it's an optional label to use, but what it does is say, hey, I want to collaborate on this particular document or piece of information, but I want it to be confident of where it's going to go and how it's going to be used. And that enabled it, because you can think of all the different workarounds people do today to securely share information or setting passwords. In fact, that's the feedback we got from one of the leaders in the company is, does that mean I don't have to set a password on my document before I send it out? That's exactly what it means. So now that we've enabled the ability to collaborate much easier, and in fact, probably enabled collaboration that wasn't happening because of concerns of not being able to do it without security concerns, right?
Yeah, it's something so simple that we have been doing for so long that we take for granted. But thank you for highlighting that we have had password-based sharing for so long that now with label-based protections that are there, you don't need passwords. It's amazing. Yes, thank you for reminding me about that. In terms of understanding where labeling fits into the overall scheme, Antonio, you and I know, as we have talked to our customers about deploying labels, that there is this confusion between classification and labeling. When you talk to everyone, how do you sort this difference out? Like, I build the product, but what do you do?
It's a great question because those two words, classification and labeling, to many people out there, they mean the same thing.
Exactly.
But in your world, they're not the same thing, right? So we often do spend time with our clients kind of clarifying the differences between the two, right? Classification being the fundamental back-end processes that are looking for sensitive data across your data estate. And you can see the results of that in things like the Purview Data Explorer, what used to be called the Content Explorer, right? You can see there the sensitive information types and retention labels and so on that are showing you where you have documents or emails with credit card numbers and passport numbers and bank account numbers, all of that. That's classification. Labeling is the act of actually assigning a label or a tag, if you will, if you want to simplify it down, to that content, right? Which is a bit of an abstraction layer, but I think that helps the average user to understand what's sensitive, what's highly sensitive, what can be public, this type of thing. So it takes this notion for me of labeling, takes this notion for me of identifying what's sensitive and bringing it down to a simple structure that users can relate to.
That's what we had originally envisioned, right? With the colors and the simple terms and things like that.
That's right.
Our day-to-day users aren't expected to understand credit card numbers and the complex, sensitive information types behind it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want your users to have to choose, you know, do I encrypt this thing or not? It's more about it's sensitive or it's confidential, and then the controls are automatically applied based on that. That's labeling for me.
And do you see customers get that, aha, I understand the difference now with this explanation?
When we explain it to them, yes.
When you explain about it, yes, makes sense.
Yeah.
On the topic of labels, again, you and I know that when we actually go deploy labels in an organization, the first question that comes is, okay, what labels should I have?
Yeah.
And there's always this question of how many labels.
Yes.
And when you find the power of labels and all its colors and everything else, let's go make labels. So how do you do this balance between too few labels and its outcomes and too many labels and the consequences of that? How do you teach your customers, how do you guide them on this?
So it's a great question. We do go through this process with clients, right? And sometimes you do run across organizations that want a large number of labels because they look at the labels as not only defining what's sensitive, but also where it should go or who should be allowed to access or what you can do with it. And you need to simplify that down, right? So ultimately our recommendations, and we call this defining your label schema, right? What used to be called a data classification schema, and this is where the confusion between classification and labeling comes in.
That's right.
So your labeling schema, when you define it, we always lean towards fewer labels, right? Because ultimately you want your users to be able to easily choose what label is the right label, right? You don't want people always picking the most sensitive label just in case. You want people to actually often thoughtfully choose what is the correct label. And there's lots of defaults that you can take advantage of to simplify that decision for them as well. But to make that decision easy, you need a smaller number of labels, right? And I kind of look at it on a bit of a bell curve, if you will, where the most common information in your organization is going to kind of be at the top of that bell curve. So if the most common information in your organization is going to be confidential, that's probably at the top there and the one that's going to be most likely used. But if the most common information in your organization is the mundane stuff that we exchange every day, right? That's not particularly sensitive, but I don't want to getting it out anyway. I might call that internal or general or something like that. And that's usually at the top of the bell curve. And you have less information that's confidential and even less that's highly confidential. You have less that's public on the other side. So going through that exercise and bringing the label schema down to 3, 4, or 5 labels. That I find is kind of the sweet spot, somewhere in that range.
I love the bell curve analogy. I'm going to steal it. Thank you.
Please.
I'm going to use that diagram from here on. The interesting bit that you pointed out, and I want to kind of re-emphasize that, is this cognitive overload that you're trying to reduce.
Yes.
Awesome.
And if I could add one thing to it.
Go for it.
Through this notion of having a data security program where you're rolling out labeling, Ultimately, you want your outcome or your objective to be making every employee in your organization part of the security solution. So you want them all to understand two things. What label do I apply to what type of information? And then when I receive information that's labeled a certain way, what am I allowed to do with it? Right? And that needs to be, I think, part of the objective of defining your labeling schema.
Okay. Now, I know there's a question there but can we hold questions to the end and we will take all of them together? Is that okay? Awesome, thank you. We talked about labeling, thank you. But I'm going to switch gears to protection actions as they come out of DLP. So Scott, tell us about your DLP journey. How's that been like?
Yeah, we started, we have DLP solutions in place already. We started going deeper into exploration on Purview is how could we make it better? And so we've had already set the foundation with labeling, and now adding DLP and Purview, the value we saw there is there's nudging and warnings and things that change behavior directly within the applications that people are using, whether that's Outlook or Teams or everywhere people are working and making decisions about how they're moving data. So we started exploring that as a way to not just in the traditional sense of preventing data from leaking outside the organization, but even internally, is data moving to the right places, and are we making sure we're putting tools in place that change practices and help bring awareness? Because as you mentioned, getting everybody involved, everybody in the organization is participating in the success of information security and management of information.
So you learn everything, you learn something new every day, because I always looked at DLP as data loss prevention, but now I see that interesting point of view where DLP is a way to do data movement matching and understanding your lay of the land there, how users are working with your data. Yeah. Thank you for that.
To us, it's oversharing now that, we're hearing that word so much more now in terms of AI, but it's really, to me, DLP is really preventing oversharing and bringing awareness about where data is going and keeping everybody aware and informed of
that makes sense.
Prevent it. So.
We did talk a lot this time around in terms of how DLP for 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃 Copilot does help with oversharing. So I think some of that is clicking for me now. Thank you. Antonio, I'm going to give you a tough question.
Okay.
When you go and talk to your customers about DLP deployments, you're bound to encounter some incumbent DLP tool.
Yes.
There's bound to be this question of what's the right thing? How do you decide the right way going forward? What's your framework for dealing with that situation?
It's interesting. When we approach new clients, new projects, we either find that they have a legacy DLP system that's been there for a very long time, or they have no DLP system. Most often, they already have one. It always amazes me when large organizations have no DLP. I ask the question, and they're like, no, we don't have DLP. And I'm like, really? How can you not have a DLP system? In any case, most of them do. And often it's a legacy system that's been there for a very long time. Most of the DLP systems we see in place have been there for 10, 15 years, and the rules have amassed over that time. So we see a very large number of DLP rules in place in these legacy systems. And we also see the vast majority of DLP systems in monitor-only mode. Right? The bane of DLP, as you know, is false positives. And with the legacy systems, it's very difficult to deal with false positives. So in most cases, they have remained in monitor-only mode in order to not stop business. So when we approach such a situation, we look at those legacy policies, and we use that as an opportunity to clean the policies up, modernize the policies, consolidate policies, validate and test them as we move into the Purview world, the Purview DLP world. Mm-hmm. And I think as we move into the Purview DLP world, it's important to look at the different types of DLP within Purview. right? We have cloud DLP that's been there for a very long time. We have endpoint DLP. We have DLP for non-Microsoft cloud sources through Defender for Cloud Apps. We have DLP for on-prem. What's that?
Teams DLP.
Teams DLP, yes, which I consider part of cloud DLP. We now have inline browser DLP. We have network DLP, which are phenomenal. Very happy that those have gotten there.
My favorite, don't leave it out, Copilot DLP.
Copilot DLP, yes, absolutely. So we do look at this continuum DLP solutions and look at the policies you have in place. Like I said, rationalize your policies. So use that opportunity to clean them up and modernize them, and then roll them out through those solutions over a period of time.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that is a hard thing to do because not all the rules look the same.
Correct.
Not all the functionality is the same.
Correct.
So what is your advice to this audience on doing DLP deployments in the right way or getting to value fast?
So I would say, again, as you look at those, that continuum of different kinds of DLP, plan those out in certain time frame. Try not to boil the ocean.
Fair.
Microsoft has provided some good tools around migrating DLP policies to from a couple of legacy systems to Purview DLP, so take a look at those, but then also do some manual review of those in order to get them into the right place that you want. I also like to deploy DLP through a crawl, walk, run type of program where we are gradually introducing more changes and blocks as we evaluate the policies and test them for false positives and fine-tune them. That fine-tuning process is really important to minimize false positives.
Actually, I add one more thing to the mix usually when I talk to everyone. Start small with the number of users that you roll it out to.
Yes.
Don't roll it out to your entire organization and have everyone yell at you. Not fun for anyone.
Yes. Don't turn on every SIT.
Don't turn on everything.
Because you'll end up with more false positives than you know what to deal with.
Okay.
So be selective.
We're on the same page then.
Absolutely.
So Antonio, it's a good transition. You mentioned fine tuning, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. So we've gone through the stages of planning and we've gone through deployment, and so now we've kind of set that foundation. So Scott, tell me, like, how do you continue the momentum that you've built with that as you move forward?
Yeah, we took the crawl, walk, run approach, of course, as well. So starting small, because we're trying to get people used to the idea of understanding how labels do add value and how to start thinking about using them and understanding what they are, right? Before we layer in policy, which we'll do. So it's a maturity thing, right? So we'll start by introducing it. It's getting everybody involved, and then over time, continuously improving our security platform, and that's easier to do over time with it in place. So that's what our focus has been.
No, that's absolutely. And it's, as we talk about like securing our platforms and that posture piece of it that we have to always keep an eye on, and Antonio, last year we had released data security posture management, and with that comes a lot of awesome capabilities around kind of showing you those internal risks or risks related to your data. What have you found useful in that journey and kind of pulling that into your customer engagements?
So I find that the recommendations that data security posture management are a very good starting point for us. I think they're a good place to ground a client and a data security program, because they can be long projects. But I want to touch on something that Scott said earlier. I think you have to take those recommendations and bring it to the business value discussion.
Yeah.
So through those recommendations, what business value do they provide? Because ultimately with the Purview solutions, as you roll them out, you're ultimately changing user behavior. You want to make sure that fits with your business value, with the business processes that you have in place, and you want to make sure that as you roll out those recommendations, that you've got a strong communication, change management, adoption program along with it. So people understand, why are you rolling out these tools? What's in it for them?
Yep.
How does it help the organization? How does it help them? And you bring them along in that journey. And I find that those recommendations are the starting point for that.
Yeah, it's great. I love the mapping of the technology piece back to what is the business outcome we're trying to drive, right? Through the means of data loss prevention or information protection. So that's great. So kind of leaning into that side. So Scott, what were some indicators for you that your data security strategy and program were kind of being successful within your organization?
Not a lot of friction on introducing labels, so it was working. Of course, we got feedback, but I think the adoption of it was a lot less painful than we expected it was going to be. But we tuned some of that, but people embraced it, and that showed success. And then, of course, we were getting visibility we didn't otherwise have, so that we can start to strategize about where we go next with the platform, and of course aligning it with some of the innovative solutions and ideas that are coming their way. So always keeping governance part of the process of delivering solutions, because it's so important for them to be successful if governance is at play.
Yeah. I'm going to add something to this, because we kind of touched upon it and then just deviated away. The entire process of rolling something out is such a change management exercise. And one thing that tends to get overlooked is how much user training goes into it. And Nick knows this. For a few years at Microsoft, we all got training every 6 months on how to use sensitivity labels. And now, of course, it's just part of what we do, but it is that teaching moment that you have for your organization. Did you end up doing something like this within your org?
I'm not sure that we did.
That's fair. I love your org, in the sense that, thank you for that, because we try to make it as simple as we can. It's the spectrum that we encounter, that sometimes you need training, sometimes you don't. Thank you for being on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of continue down this journey, though, AI is the hot topic, right? And so for both of you, Antonio and Scott, what are you guys looking at for kind of innovating your guardrails from a data security perspective while still allowing for innovation like AI to assist in tasks within your tenants while still maintaining control of your data?
Yeah, for us, the AI solutions that we're building, we've really laid a strategy together that has the governance always part of that process. So we're always looking at building solutions on top of well-structured and informed data, because AI loves information, it loves descriptors about data, and we need people to be able to give context to the information that AI is ultimately going to sit on top of. Right, so if we're building those solutions, I think that's always part of the messaging, is how can we start with that well-structured, clean data to be able to actually get a production and scalable solution into a business workflow.
I'm going to take your question down to a bit of a slightly more technical level, if you will, down to the actual solution level.
Perfect.
I love some of the AI solutions that the Purview team is releasing, like the DLP triage agent, the IRM agent, right? And those are extremely useful for an information security team once a program is rolled out to improve how you deal with DLP alerts, right? If we go back to the false positive thing, it's really easy to get a really large number of DLP alerts. And some organizations think, well, I'm going to have my SOC team deal with those. Yeah. But the SOC team often doesn't have the context into what the information is or how to deal with the DLP alerts, right, depending on what it's about.
And they're overworked.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I do think that the usage of AI in managing these data security solutions, this data security program, there's a ton of opportunity there, especially with Security Copilot now included with E5. That to me is one of the best announcements here, because now we can leverage the Purview experiences for Security Copilot to help you with understanding where you have risk and where the Purview solutions can help you with those.
Yeah, we were just vibing about that backstage.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Security Copilot with E5 is amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, what is a piece of advice that you both would want to share with our friends in the audience and other organizations as far as like what this journey starts and looks like, and wish you had known beforehand? Scott, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, we said it already, but I think start slow. Find ways that you can demonstrate the value quickly, right? Because and think about what is the minimum governance required to be successful, and then build from there. So you don't have to over-engineer or think about all the different types of controls you want to put in place, because that can happen over time.
Don't boil the ocean.
Don't boil the ocean.
Boil the ocean, yes.
I would say as you establish a data security program, you're going to need to bring stakeholders and the team together. Make sure that that's a cross-functional team that does not only include information security, it should also include your information management team, your records management team, and your change team, and a few others. And the reason I say that is that those other teams, the ones that are not information security, tend to be a balancing force for the information security team. What I find is information security teams, their imperative is, we need to lock things down. We are never going to have a breach on my watch. And it's really easy to disrupt business process, to introduce too much friction, to leverage the word that you used, into when you roll out these solutions. And you don't want that to happen, right? As you roll out these Purview solutions in a data security program, you want to build momentum as you go out to the organization at large. And to do that, you have to have good experiences, you have to have quick wins, and you have to balance this notion of securing your data with keeping people productive. And I find that having a cross-functional team helps to balance out that imperative of securing all your information.
Wonderful. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think, as we talk about the expansion and the journey moving forward, there have been so many exciting announcements this week around our beloved Microsoft Purview products. So I'm curious, from your guys' perspective, like what's one standout thing that kind of was like, this is going to make my journey and the continuing future even better?
I'm excited about agents working through the risks, right? And understanding our security posture and helping take action on it without people having to sort through those insights, right? So I think that's very exciting to be able to mature our program using automation that people otherwise have to take on.
Hard to pick one. I'll say, like I said, the Security Copilot being included with the E5 licenses, brilliant. I'm very excited about that one. I think the combining of data security posture management and data security posture management for AI, combining those into one solution is meaningful for me because I think it simplifies the discussion internally on which solution to use, right? It's not, yes, AI is important. We all want to roll out AI. We want to protect our data and eliminate oversharing in order to roll out AI. But a data security program is generally very valuable for an organization, and you want to translate to your business value. So having one solution, which is data security posture management, I think simplifies that discussion. So looking forward to that one.
Perfect.
And then the new agents that were introduced for Purview as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, I have been very excited about all the announcements as well, and there are so many. So don't forget to check our blogs after the event to kind of soak it all in and get excited with us. But with that, I want to open it up to maybe one or two questions from the audience, and we do have 2 microphones down each of the aisles if you wanted to ask our amazing guests here any questions.
I'm going to request you to go to the mic and take the question, and so that we can capture it and everyone can listen to it. Go for it.
I have a series of questions.
Sorry?
I have a series of questions.
Okay, we'll take one and then we'll take the rest offline and we'll give everyone else a chance.
Okay. So, how did you mitigate the user error? Because, I realize that boils down to a lot of education. I do get that. But in the case of user error, are there any kind of like a backup, a standard that says, hey, wait, you might have done this wrong?
Yeah. in the context of applying labels, for example, like did somebody pick the correct label in the first place, right? And I would say that's something, again, where we started more with manual application of labels, shifted to automation. That helps, of course, alleviate some of the decision-making in the process, but there's also other layers to Purview through DLP policy and classification that we're not entirely relying on a label, and over time there is the ability to look at reporting and get insights of mislabeled content and correct it. So it's something that matures over time. We don't expect it to be perfect from day one.
And we will catch you afterwards for the rest of the questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, so mine is very much related to that first question, which is around, how far can we expect to get using the automated labeling type capabilities that you have available now, right? Like, things are moving quickly. Change management takes a long time. Getting stakeholder buy-in takes a long time. I'm kind of envisioning get that labeling journey started right now, no policy enforcement, at least then I've got good data that I can go back and kind of start to work with. So, what are some reasonable expectations around once we start turning that on, like how far we can get using the automated process?
Antonio, your experience is going to help.
So, I think how to answer your question. So, we typically start with the user-based labeling, right? So enabling user-based classification by rolling out labels to users, because that helps users to understand what each label means. So even if you use the automated capabilities to label your content at rest, let's say, or even if it's email content in motion, when someone receives something labeled a certain way, they understand what that label means. That's the objective there. So we typically start with user-based labeling and then come back for a second phase and use the automated labeling to label the bulk of your content that's sitting at rest, or again, email if it's in motion. And when it comes to the automated capabilities, I would say there's two different types that we leverage. And the first one I think relates to the first question that we got. There's the client-side auto-labeling, which means when I'm in one of the client applications, right, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, there's this notion of a label being recommended to me or a label being automatically assigned. We typically leverage that automated capability as part of that initial rollout of labels to users, so that, when you think about user error, those client-side auto-labeling policies can help to recommend the right label to the user depending on the content in their email or their attachments or documents sitting at rest, for example. So that's one I'll say, usage of auto-labeling. When we then look at auto-labeling for content at rest, that is, like I said, typically a second phase that we come back to and do afterwards. I would say there's a lot of fine-tuning of the policies that happen. So we typically go through a meaningful exercise to actually validate the sits that we want to use, if we need to create custom sits or trainable classifiers or exact data match, and we leverage all of those tools to get the best result we can out of automated labeling. But typically that is a second phase that we come back to. I would say there that if your objective is to label all your content at rest, then you're also looking at the on-demand classification capability. And that's where you start to see the difference between classification and labeling, because that service-side auto-labeling feature depends on the content being classified in order to automatically apply a label to it. So long-winded answer, but hope that helps.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually play bad cop here, because we are quickly running out of time on our clock. What we will do is hang on to your questions, and as soon as we wrap the session up, we'll come and talk to you.
Yes.
So with that, Nick.
I was just about to say that, so thank you, Aashish. Yeah, so thank you all very much for being with us. And Scott and Antonio, thank you so much for sharing your journey and kind of what this adventure looks like for you both. I want to go ahead and welcome back on stage Vivian, our best friend here, to kind of help us go through some key takeaways.
I'll grab that from you. Thank you. Awesome. So Just to close this out, we heard some incredible takeaways from Scott, Antonio, and our own team about how data security is a continuous journey, and so you're constantly going to be making iterative changes. Just like you do high-frequency testing for things that you're developing, it's the same kind of idea here. You're developing a program, and so it's important to keep that in mind that you're not going to get it all on the right shot, all right on the first shot, and so it is an improvement journey over time. We've also heard a lot about sensitivity labeling, and it's really great to hear how it can be an enabler versus a hindrance for your users. But since we're coming up on time, we wanted to make sure that you have the appropriate resources that you need. There's a link to that adoption portal again and additional sessions coming up, and we encourage you to check out those sessions moving forward. So thank you again for your time, and we look forward to connecting with you after we're off the stage. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.